Hey everyone, this is my second video dealing with freshwater. If you have not checked out my first video, be sure to click on that before proceeding with this one because my my first video gives you some foundation basically to build upon on this one. So click off this and click on that before proceeding. If you already watched my first video, we're gonna jet now right into the material. So fasten your seatbelts, right? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and magnify this so we can see it better. We can see the pictures better. Um, so you see here the difference between an artesian well, and this is where I left off my first video. The difference between an artesian well and an aquifer. Okay, an aquifer just digs down to the first saturated zone, the first zone of saturation. And they need a pump basically to pump that water up to people's homes. Artesian well is different. Artesian well is when you have the zone of saturation laying on a layer of bedrock, but the bedrock doesn't go so deep. And then you dig through that layer of bedrock to penetrate the second layer of zone of saturation. And what that does is it relieves some pressure off this area right here, relieves some pressure of that water being able to come out now. And it just comes out without a pump. You don't need a pump. It just comes out and creates a spring of some sort. Now, when you have an artesian well, they don't call this bedrock anymore. They call it, look, a confining unit or a confining layer. So it's the same thing as the bedrock. It's like saying that's a person, or there are people over there, or there are humans over there, or whatever. The same thing, just different terminology based on what you're talking about, okay? So this confining layer is the same thing as bedrock. Don't get all crazy on me. It's not that hard to remember. But if you do need more help, be sure to email me or contact me as soon as possible. I'll be glad to go into this a little more in detail. All right, so we do get the zone of aeration, your water table, your zone of saturation, your bedrock or confining layer, zone of saturation, and I guess your permanent bedrock layer. Okay? So I'm going to escape out of this and go to the other slides. Let's talk about karst topography. In Virginia, karst topography is mainly in one area, one zone, one area of Virginia, a province. Do you know which one it is? Hmm? 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 It is the Valley and Ridge. Okay, the Valley and Ridge is primarily characterized by karst topography, and karst topography is nothing more than the rock that's underneath the soil is primarily limestone. And limestone you should be aware of, at least you might not remember, but limestone is primarily a product of coral reef systems, and that is very reactive to acid. So when it rains and that rain has a pH like 6.0 or 6.5, or even down to 5.5, and I guess some more serious circumstances, it's going to eat up that limestone over a period of time. And once it eats it up, it creates these patterns underneath the ground, like caves. And you see this, like streams that freaking disappear, right? Pretty crazy. And these sinkholes. Yeah, these patterns or these characteristics are created by acid rain interacting with limestone. Okay, couple great examples in Virginia of cave systems created by acid rain and limestone interacting with each other would be the Dixie Caverns and the Luray Caverns. Now, by no means are those the only cave systems in Virginia, but those are some of the most famous, okay? Dixie Caverns and the Luray Caverns. In Virginia, you can see that, yeah, up close to the coastline is where you see a lot of the karst topography, and back here where the valley and ridge would be. Okay. Down here in Florida, because there are corals, a lot more corals in Florida than up here in Virginia, that this whole state is nothing but, or at least characterized by karst topography and limestone. Okay. Getting on to protecting our water systems. A watershed is basically runoff from an area of land, water that runs off the land into the nearest stream, the nearest body of water. That could be a river, that could be a pond, that could be a lake. It just depends. In this picture right here, we can see we have some farms and we have some industry, and I'm not sure what's going on over here. But when it rains, see how it goes down like this? When it rains, the water runs off and goes into the nearby, it looks like a river system here. Also, like, but if it doesn't run off, we'll see it can still seep underground. And look where that underground water is. That underground water eventually leads right into that body of water also. So no matter what, if you have a lot of runoff going on or you're polluting your land a lot, that material can get into a nearby body of water, whether it be a pond, lake, or a river or a creek. Okay, so and that can create basically nitrates or pollutants to explode in the water, and those pollutants can have devastating consequences for the life that lives in those bodies of water. So the more that you know about pollution, the more you prevent it, the better. Okay, all right. So I'm going to go to the next slide now. Now, this is pollution that we can see. We can say, oh, that's nasty, that's trash. That doesn't create as big of a problem. That does. It does create a big problem. But the chemicals, the fertilizers, the things that we throw down like oil, gas, being careless, spraying, bugs, whatever, chemicals that are washed off are more than likely going to do more harm. Now, this definitely does do harm. Don't get me wrong. That can become, and one thing, it's an ugly sight, and that can eventually be, taken out to sea, and those animals are impacted by that. You can see a lot of effects from this type of pollution if you just did a simple Google search. But the chemicals, we want to limit those as much as possible because those are things we can't see. You're like, oh, that's not that much there, but it could be tons. Okay. The major watershed systems in Virginia and basically the rivers that lead into them. The James River is the largest or longest river in Virginia, and that's going to go into the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake Bay can definitely be impacted by the James, the York, the Appomattox, the Shenandoah, the Rappahannock, and the Potomac. So the Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the United States, and we want to keep that clean for the abundance of life forms that live there. I think it connects 6 states, and I think I have it mentioned in a second. But an estuary is where you have salt water and fresh water meeting, and that creates brackish water. You're definitely going to have brackish water down through here. Now, as you go up further, it's going to be more fresh. But down here, you're definitely going to have a brackish water mix, and those animals are going to be more unique than you would find in just a river system. Okay, and we want to protect those guys because this is the largest estuary in the United States, and we want to keep this healthy. Okay, specific freshwater items. Tributaries, when you have a smaller body of water dumping into a larger body of water, and this is a great example of it here. Now, both water systems look really nasty. This looks green, and this is stirred up probably by some kind of flooding that happened, previously. It could be 100 miles away, but this definitely seems like it's stirred up, and this seems like you might have some algae blooms going on, the green algae blooms. So this water right here is probably terrible. This is a meander, young versus old meander systems. A meander is going to be an older system compared to a river that just flows straight. A lot of flooding has created this. Floodings over a period of time have created this meandering of this water system right here. And a wetland is an area of fresh or brackish water, even somewhat salt water, a little bit of salt going on, or more so than brackish, that are covered at least a large portion of the year. I think it says right here, land area that is covered with water during part or all of the year. So yeah, marshes, swamps, and bogs. Now marshes are going to be your brackish water, kind of salt water. Your swamps and bogs, not so much. It says I only have 30 seconds left, and I just talked about wetlands and floodplains. I had covered in a previous video talking about the benefits of having a farm near floodplains to bring in that additional nutrients from the soil that's deposited during erosion and deposition phase. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.